Anybody who's spent any time in the area near where I grew up in Waynesville, North Carolina, knows about Mount Lynn Lowry. It's a 6,000 plus foot mountain named after a young girl who died at the age of 16 from leukemia. Her parents, General and Mrs. Sumter Lowry, erected a 60-foot tall cross on top of that mountain in loving memory of their daughter. And it's a beautiful thing to see. You can see it on a clear day, it gleams, and at night it's lit up, and well, it's been there now for nearly 60 years. The mountain historically was known as Jones Knob. That's how people knew it for generations. And it's interesting how it got its name. The preacher Aaron Bryson, who lived in Balsam Gap at the foot of the mountain, said that years before he was born, that a man came visiting in the area by the name of Jones, who claimed to have been to the top of that mountain. But as people questioned him about what he saw, it became readily apparent that he had been nowhere near the top of it, and that he, in fact, had made up the whole story. And so it became kind of a joke, and it became known as Jones Knob, and some people even referred to it as Jones Folly because of that. Isn't it interesting that so many people make claims that are empty and prove to be untrue? Many people, for example, claim to know God. They even instruct the rest of us through Facebook about the things that they know about God, but it's apparent they don't know Him because they have disregarded what God has said. Can you imagine claiming that you love somebody and yet at the same time turning around and saying, I just can't stand to listen to them? Imagine. What kind of relationship would that be? To say you love somebody but you can't stand the things that they say? And yet that's where many people are today. Claiming to know things about God, so much so that they can teach the rest of us, and yet they've completely disregarded His Word, and their lives reflect it. The Lord Jesus Christ says in John chapter 14, verse 15, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Now think about that. If we really love Him, we're going to care about what He says. We're going to care about whether our lives align with His will. Because ultimately, if we know the Lord Jesus, it means that we have come to the understanding that we are sinners. We've made confession of those sins, repented of them, and trusted in Jesus to save us from them. After all, there can be no real discussion about the love of God unless there is discussion about how we can get rid of the sin and guilt that would forever separate us from God. The love of God has made provision for us through His Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. And so, if we know God, it will be because we know Jesus. And if we love the Lord, then we will care about His instructions, and we will want to follow Him. We cannot have a real relationship with God on the one hand and live a life of sin on the other. Those two things are incompatible. So, you can claim to have been to the top of the mountain, but that doesn't mean you've been there. And I trust and pray that your claim to know the Lord Jesus is a genuine claim, and that you have an actual relationship with Him, and thus know the one true and living God. And may God bless you as you think about that.